to answer your questions. This is going to be a phenomenal interview, so let's get started. My name is Caroline de Posada, and as you know, I am the founder of Caro's Core Challenges and Core, the formula that I have developed to create a successful and happy life. But behind every successful woman, there are mentors and coaches and community that levels these women up. And for men too. Behind every successful man, they say that there's a successful woman, but we know that that's not always the case. It's usually mentors, community, maybe an amazing woman or an amazing partner of any gender. So in my particular case, that woman is Susan Ford Collins. Now, I met Susan Ford Collins at a time of my life where I felt that my light had been turned off. I had just lost my father. I was transitioning in careers. I had had a very successful legal career, but I was trying to find my way in this world of trying to carry my father's legacy and move into the motivational speaking world. And I felt very disoriented without my dad. I felt lost, and I didn't know what my place was. And a friend of mine, Bruce Turkel, I was talking with him, and I wasn't asking for help, by the way. I was just sharing how I felt. And he said, well, you need to go see Susan Ford Collins. And I said, well, for what? And he said, you just need to see her. You need to make an appointment. In fact, we're going to call her and we're going to make an appointment right now. And he forced me to make this appointment that I had to pay for, and I didn't know why I was going. And I show up in her house, and I'm sitting directly across from her, and she says, well, why are you here? And I said, I don't know, but Bruce is insisting that you're some sort of people whisperer and that I need to be here. Well, that was the beginning of a lifelong friendship and mentorship. Susan was my coach for years. She, along with Dave Bricker, helped me in the editing of my book. She was the person that turned that light back on. She really turned my light back on, and she taught me skills. I read her book, The Joy of Success. If any of you have been in my core challenge, you know that it's one of my must reads on my list of books for you all. And she has just changed my life. So I thought that it would be very selfish of me to keep her all to myself and not share her with you. And that is the reason that I have invited her today to talk about what she calls the coronavirus opportunity. And she's going to tell you a little bit about that. So Susan, please introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm delighted. This is so much fun because a lot of you are at home with kids, with added responsibilities and interacting like crazy. I've been here alone since March. And that is the toughest challenge for me because I'm a people person. I like to feed people. I have people for lunch. Yeah, another one. I invite people over for lunch 3 or 4 times a week, usually, but not now. So I've been looking at the opportunity in the coronavirus opportunity, but let me go back to where this started for me, because years ago, I was a girl whose mother was an alcoholic and whose father was a workaholic. And I knew that if I followed either of their examples, I was not going to be any happier than they were. And my relationship wasn't going to work any better than theirs did. And so I started my career as a research psychologist at the National Institutes of Mental Health in Bethesda, Maryland. And I went there thinking, oh, good. Now I'm going to find out what makes people healthy and successful. Oh, this is going to be great. Wrong. After a year or a year and a half, I think it was, I realized that they were only studying illness and dysfunction. There was no interest in success or achievement or joy or satisfaction. That was not even discussed. I don't think I ever heard the words there. And so I started waking up in the middle of the night thinking, I'm on the wrong track. I'm in the wrong place. This isn't working. This isn't what I signed up for. And I started imagining what I would say at our weekly conference of like all the biggest people in the field. And there were like 250 in these conferences. And I decided that I was going to say, I think we're on the wrong track. We need to be studying highly successful people who are contributors, who are healthy, who are happy, who are creative, and find out what they're doing that other people are not doing. And I thought, boy, they're going to be excited about this. This is a really good kind of turn in direction for NIH. But the whole room laughed. And when I say laughed, I don't mean tee-hee, I mean laughed. Like I was red-faced, I was mortified, I was like, wanted to shrink into the floor until I realized that this was a major decision I was making here on my feet. I could believe them that my idea was laughable, stupid, not worth pursuing, or I could decide that it was a great idea that just seemed impossible to them because they hadn't thought about it. They hadn't conceived of the possibility yet. And so I stood there with my feet planted solidly, and I said, I'm going to study highly successful contributing members of society for my whole career. And I'm going to teach people who don't use all the skills they use, the skills they're missing. And so that's what I've done. So,
and this was at a time where women didn't speak up the way that they do now.
Women did not speak up, and I didn't have a mother that spoke up either. So I tell you what motivated me was I was determined to be a good example for my daughters. I had 2 daughters. I was a single mom. I was separated. I had to leave NIH, my research position, when my husband got a new position. So I was in a town where there were no research positions. And I took a job in junior high school. And fortunately, the head of the school asked me to go to the World Games Conference at the University of Massachusetts. And I met Buckminster Fuller. And he was at the head of my list of highly successful people that I wanted to study as I went out on my own. And here's this little short man in the hall, and I'm literally colliding with him. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity I'll never get again. I am right here, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, although his eyes were a little lower than mine. He was a very short man with a shiny bald head, just like an elf. He was delightful. At any rate, after about a minute of telling him about my plight at NIH and how I wanted to study how the successful people and learn their skill set, he said, okay, I'm on. You're very persuasive. And so he said, you can study me, you can shadow me the way you want. For the next 3 months, I'm at the University of Pennsylvania, and you're in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. Shouldn't be that hard. There's a train that runs right between us. And so I spent the next 3 months in every free moment that I could, and I planned it over the summer, so I had a lot of free moments because as a teacher, I had the same schedule as my kids, which was my strategy for going into teaching. And so at the end of the 3 months, I told him some of the skills that I had observed him using, and he scratched his head and he said, I know, I do that. Doesn't everyone? I said, sadly, no, everyone doesn't. That's exactly the point. And he said, I like you, young woman, you've got spunk, and I'm going to refer you to everybody I can think of.
Is anybody else hearing her breaking up? Wait, Susan, you're breaking up.
I'm not moving, nothing's happening.
She sounds fine to me, Carol. Might be on your side.
Yeah.
Okay. Guide me.
Susan?
Yes.
Susan?
It sounds fine.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were breaking up and I didn't hear what you said. Okay, great.
Oh.
Please continue because I stopped hearing you and I was afraid that I was so into what you were saying that I didn't want anybody else to stop hearing you. Okay, continue.
So fast forward, he referred me to numbers of really extraordinary people. I shadowed them for 3 months at a time. It wasn't an interview. I knew that wasn't going to do it. It was shadowing. It was going in the car with them, sitting in meetings with them. I remember one CEO had a phone call while I was in there kind of observing, and I heard someone shouting at him loudly, and it was an adolescent male voice. And it turned out that it was his son who was furious with him because he had promised to be at his championship basketball event that day. And he was launching a new product and he wasn't going to be coming. And his son was saying, you're never there for me. I hate you, Dad. You always make work more important than me. And his father was embarrassed, and he turned to me when it was over and he said, I'm really sorry that you had to witness that, but my son was right. I have always put him behind my work, and it's not fair. And I'm glad you were there to kind of hold me accountable, because I'm going to make a big change in that area. So there were some really, I mean, I tell you this story, it almost makes me cry as I think about it, because he was so embarrassed but moved. You know, it moved us forward. And so I did this for 20 years in the background of raising 2 daughters as a single mom, teaching in a junior high school, taking my vacations to shadow highly successful people, writing a book, starting the Technology of Success seminars in Miami at the University of Miami as part of their continuing education department, and then going on to be a researcher at NIH. You know, it's been an unfolding path. But this is something I found, that if you've got a passion and you lean into it, the path will unfold and the people will come forward in the most magical of ways.
So you spent, Susan, and I think this is such an important point that everybody needs to pay attention, because there's so many of us that are pursuing our businesses, that we are raising children, that we are in the middle years, in the thick of of developing the life that we're trying to develop, and we feel like it's taking too long. And I was always so inspired by your story, because it's, you know, it's when you say it took me 20 years on weekends and in summers and in between breaks to shadow these people and develop these 10 skills of success. I mean, 20 years is a very, very long time. And for those of you who don't know, Susan's book was picked up by HarperCollins. It became a bestseller. It was translated in 14 different languages. She spent a year in China training. I don't even know who it was, but
women leaders in China.
Women leaders in China. She spent 1 year there training them in the skills of success. And you look at such a successful life and you think, oh my God, I'm running out of time. But in reality, Susan, in a long span of many, many years, has done so many amazing things, but never sacrificing the relationships that mattered to her, and always being very clear about where she was in the space. So there was a time where being a teacher had to be the priority because of her children. And this was still a passion project, but she understood that it was going to be on the side. And then there was a time for her to elevate that career and no longer teach, because the moment was ready for that. So I've always been very impressed by that, Susan. If you want to touch on that a little bit, on how did you develop the clarity and the wisdom to know that this wasn't taking too long? How did you not give up on year 2 and say, if I haven't written a book in 2 years, it's over. This is a waste of my time?
Well, there came a moment early on where I surrendered to the fact that this was my mission on this planet and that I would be guided. And that may sound like a simple statement, but it's profound. It's really the basis of my life, that if I surrender, if I have an outcome in my mind and I commit to it, I will be guided. The next phone call will be important. The next person I bump into in an elevator with will be important. The man I'm working out with at the Eden Rock Spa in the pool, who's a very heavy man that I probably never would have had a conversation or 10 or 20 or 30 with normally, ended up being the producer of the Today Show. And when he went back to New York, he said, I'm so impressed with just our few chats that when your book comes out, call me, I'll get you on the Today Show. So, understand that the fallacy is you have to know up front. You don't have to know up front. You have to commit to the outcome and stay flexible about the method. I'm going to say it again. That's the thing I really want you to hear. Commit to your outcome in as much detail and as much information as you can put with it, and then stay flexible about the method. And I would add, stay clear that you will be guided there if you stay open. If you get rigid, then you'll take yourself tacking off in the wrong direction, and you'll miss opportunities that are right smack there in the elevator with you or in the swimming pool with you. And it's really that simple.
So you have I absolutely love what you just said. Stay clear that you will be guided there, and stay open, because if you're too rigid, you're going to miss the opportunities. And I think right now we have been forced, the universe has given us no choice but to become flexible and become unrigid in a time where we, no matter how committed or how firm we were to our ideas, to the way that things that worked, to what we thought our life was going to look like, we have been forced out of that. And that's been a very difficult process for a lot of people. I think it's been something, you know, and a friend of mine, Nikki, always says, the more you resist the change, the more you suffer.
Or the more it persists.
Right, or the more it persists. So I think that that's so aligned with that. So you developed 10, or you discovered 10 skills of highly successful people.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So I know that you talk a lot about gears, and I really would love everybody to learn about gears right now, and so that they can get into the mindset of success. So would you talk a little bit about the gears or the skills, however you feel is best to start?
Okay, I wish I could give it all to you in a capsule. I cannot. Took me 2.5 years to write the book. But what I can tell you is the first 2 skills are the ones she's talking about. The first skill is success filing. It's a process I'll talk more about, because I know Caro's mentioned it to you before, but success filing is taking responsibility for telling yourself the steps you're taking towards success on a daily basis. And then the second skill is using all 3 success and leadership gears at the right time. So you heard me right, success and leadership gears at the right time. The first gear of success, as parents or neighbors or friends or teachers, we know that when somebody's brand new at something, whether that something is life, learning a new topic, learning to ride a bike, whatever it is, they don't know what they're doing. They don't have the skill yet. They're scared, they're anxious, they're eager, they're excited, but they're pretty skillless at that point, and they're very dependent. Now, that doesn't mean they might not act like they aren't dependent, but they are dependent because they have no knowledge. So what they need from you when they're in the first gear of success is support, is direction, is clear instruction, is constant affirmation of what they're doing right, and constant pointing out of what they're doing wrong and how to correct it. But from a place of, I believe in you, from a place of, I know you're going to get good at this, you just need to practice it and keep going. So the first gear of success is the starting gear, just like the first gear of moving the car forward. You go ahead slowly and you go ahead carefully. Then you get to a point where you are effective at the skill. I think about scuba diving. That was a prime example for me because I was not exactly excited about being underwater with the tank on. But what I learned was once I had all those basic principles in mind and once I passed the tests, then I could go ahead and learn to become more efficient, jump off the boat and actually go down there and see that there were fish underwater and wrecks to explore. It became exciting at that point. So if we look at bike riding as an example, in first gear, you're trying to get the balance. I just saw a kid on my block for the first time, like take off on his own, and his family's all back there cheering and applauding because that's a major thing. So once we have that, we get to a place where we become not just effective, but we have to start becoming efficient. We have to actually drop out some of the first gear rules, the rights and wrongs and goods and bads and shoulds and shouldn'ts that you have to learn to begin something. And so in second gear, we start taking shortcuts. Now that can be good or disastrous, depending on which things we drop out. And so this is where we need a leader, not with us holding a hand, telling us what to do moment by moment exactly, but a leader standing nearby to prevent us from crashing or prevent us from running out in front of a car in traffic or whatever might eliminate our chances of ever succeeding because it might injure us in some disastrous way. So the second gear of success is learning the shortcuts that you can take in order to be more efficient. So the first gear of success is about being effective. The second gear of success is about being efficient. And the key words for the first gear of success are right, wrong, good, bad, should, shouldn't, have to, must. And if you've got little kids around, you'll hear yourself shift into that vocabulary without even realizing that you've just shifted into the first gear of leadership. It's very natural and normal. In the second gear of success, the key words are more, better, faster, cheaper. And that immediately takes you into business, the business world, our global marketplace. And that's gotten very disrupted right now. As Carol was saying, coronavirus has challenged the ways we've been doing business, the ways we've been living our lives and driving to work and all the things that we've been doing. So there comes a point in second gear where you either have a disruption like COVID, or you have an opportunity, like I did meeting Buckminster Fuller, where you go, aha, there's another way I can do this. And I'm going to trust my intention. I'm going to explore it. I'm going to discover something brand new that I will then teach to other people. So there's 3 gears of success. The first gear is the starting gear. The second gear is becoming efficient and productive. The third gear is becoming creative. And then there's a flip over into leadership. Now, what do you need when you're in the first gear of success? Somebody tell me. What kind of leadership? Who can tell me? Do you want
Anybody want to participate?
Yeah.
I've got Lida. Let's unmute Lida. I'm unmuting you, girl.
Yeah,
There you are.
A supportive, leadership. So
Yes.
just encouragement.
Yes.
You can do it. You're on the right path.
Right.
Type of thing.
And not just supportive on the positive side, but supportive on the negative side too. Giving accurate feedback.
Right.
Correcting, but in a way of saying, I know you're going to understand this, you're just new at this, as opposed to, you're stupid. Why do you keep doing that? And we've all experienced leaders like that. They really shut us down. We never get through first gear, we just get rigid. So yes, supportive in giving feedback, corrective feedback, yes. So that it's really important. If you do not get the right feedback when you're in first gear, you're crippled. You really cannot go into second gear because you won't have the confidence or the real skill set. You'll think you're good because you got all the stars and hugs and kisses and cookies, but you won't really have the skill set and be ready to perform with your peers. So yeah, thanks.
Susan, that's one of the things that we've encountered in Caro's Core Challenges. When these women start these challenges and they start implementing healthy habits, and for some, these healthy habits are very natural and very normal. They're in second or even third gear. But for some, they're in first gear and they're learning for the very first time how to implement healthy habits into their life. They're learning for the first time how to deposit into their physical bank accounts and their spiritual bank accounts. They've never done any of this before. And one of the comments that I've received in the past, and I've always taken it with a lot of honor, is that people say, I push with velvet gloves.
Yes.
And it's because I've learned from you and also from my father that when you are in a leadership position, you have to make sure that when you are helping people move into that second gear, that you're doing it with love. Now,
Yes.
I didn't know that. I think I knew that intuitively, but I didn't know the language until you taught it to me. And one of the most important things, ladies and men, in this group is you may know some of these concepts, but when you label the concepts and you put them with definitive terms, it clicks in your brain, and then you can easily understand instead of doing things by your gut or by intuition, which is usually how we function. It's great to say, oh, I'm in first gear right now, or I'm in second gear. Or when you're looking at your children and your children start becoming combative, or they're not following the rules like they used to, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, wow, they're so argumentative. You can reframe that and say, oh, they're moving into second gear. How do I manage this while they're in second gear? So I think that might be
Can't hear you, Carol. Okay.
so now, then we go into the third gear, which is becoming creative. And Susan, one thing I've always been fascinated by is that you've taught me that some people never leave second gear.
Yes.
They always stay in second gear. So how do you go from second to third? How do you get into that creativity?
Well, and that's that moment that I was talking about before, where all of a sudden you have to have a relationship with the universe that says, opportunities will come my way because this is something I'm committed to, I'm passionate about, I know it's my mission. There has to be some shift from depending on leaders and believing everything they tell you, like my audience at NIH, and starting to believe in yourself, believing in creativity, believing in possibility. And it's only then that you can go into third gear. Because otherwise, keep in mind, everything is impossible until someone has done it. So if it hasn't been done yet, it's going to be labeled impossible. And when people tell you that's impossible, just know it's impossible for them, given their mindset, given their experience. It doesn't mean it's impossible for you, so don't buy it. That would be a huge mistake. Everything is possible. Look, we're getting new things every single moment. And now that we're global, we're getting new things from all over the world, and we need to continue to. And now that we're looking at our biases, Black Lives Matter, we're looking at all of the unconscious prejudices that we have, we're realizing that we haven't been listening to half of our population. First it was the female half, and now it's the Black half, and I know a lot of Hispanics feel like it's their part too. We have to listen to every single person on the planet to solve the problems that we face. And so again, that's kind of a spiritual, metaphysical shift that has to occur. And it's funny because when I was working in the corporate world, women would come up to me in the ladies' room and say, "You're a very spiritual person, aren't you?" And I'd go, "Yeah, I am." And they'd say, "Thank heavens, we've been waiting for you. We need this. We need something to lift us, to elevate us from the grind." And so that is the point. And thanks for asking that question, because it is a moment, a very special moment. And once you've had it and labeled it, I just shifted into third gear, then it will become easy. And it will become easy for you to recognize when one of your kids has just shifted into third gear and they've got an idea and you need to support it. I'm not saying you have to completely buy it or let them drive the car or take over running your home, but you have to encourage them with their ideas. After 9/11, I was invited to speak to the families of the survivors of 9/11. And there was a woman who came to my talk and read my book and stayed in touch with me. And one day I got an email. She said, "Please help me. My son really wants to be a fireman. He's seen all those firemen on CNN and they were so heroic, and he wants to be a fireman. And he wants me to take him to the fire station and let him slide down that pole. And I can't do it." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I don't want him to ever be a fireman, because he could get burned up in an accident like that." And I said, "You're mixing apples and oranges here. Let's go to the parenting side of this thing. What your son is saying is, 'Mom, help me pursue my dreams.'" He's not saying, "Yeah, I'm going to be a fireman." He's just saying, "I'm interested in exploring the possibility of what it's like to be a fireman, or feel like a fireman, or wear a hat, or slide down a pole." So it's very important for us to get on board with our kids' ideas, not from that we think they're completely right, but that they're right to explore them. And that we also want to think long-term, because if we're the one that every time they have an idea, they go, yeah, but, or that's not ever going to work, or I know people who failed at that. I had a dad like this. Then what happens is your kids will stop sharing their dreams with you. You will be the last to know what's on their mind, what's got them excited. So you need to go into that third gear of leadership, which is the supportive of the dream possibility. So I had a wonderful follow-up email from that mother saying, I took him to the fire station. He had such a wonderful time. The fireman was so great. The hat was so heavy. I couldn't believe it, she said. And then she said, now he's talking about wanting to drive a concrete truck. So, I had told her, I had asked her, in fact, what did you want to be when you were his age? And she said, a teacher or a nurse. I said, well, were you either of them? And she said, no. I said, well, he's probably not going to be a fireman either. But you want him to dream, and you want him to know that you are a co-dreamer, that you will dream the dreams with him and not an obstructor or a barrier or a block.
Well, Susan, I think that's it could become a very difficult thing for a parent to do, but it's also a very empowering thing for a parent to do. But on the flip side of that, I wonder, in this very call, how many of us were the children of co-dreamers versus the children of the yeah but parents, and how that's affected our own lives. I can tell you, I was the child of co-dreamers. I had a father and a mother that always really allowed me to explore and be myself and create my own identity and develop and be creative. Although I didn't realize I was creative until I was 40 years old, but that's another conversation. But many of us are raised in environments like that. And so if that's all we've ever known, and we ourselves have never been put into third gear, or we ourselves have never experienced what it's like to be a co-dreamer, then how do we start that now so that we can then give that to the generations that come after us? How do we become a legacy builder to change that pattern?
And that's the whole reason that I wrote the books. I did the research. I realized that if I was going to model being a successful creative person for my daughters so they could be successful creative people, then I was going to have to get past my fears, and I wasn't going to be able to run my fears on their dreams. That wasn't going to be okay. And I had a father, so I know the opposition. I had a father, anytime I presented an idea, he said, I know somebody who tried that and it failed, so don't waste your time. You're in for a big disappointment. And he was an entrepreneur and a brilliant professor and all of that. It was hard not to believe him. But fortunately, I learned not to believe him. I learned that he was negative. I learned that he was a doubter. And that was very freeing in my life. So I'm curious, if you put up your hand, did you have supportive mother?
Well, we actually have some people commenting on the chat.
Oh, okay.
And we have no, Christine is a yeah, her mom is a yeah but till this day. Ileana also was talking about the yeah but with her sister, and she's confessing that it's hard at times to break away from the yeah but fears. We've got Rosemary who says it's such a gift when you have role models in your immediate family. If you don't, the climb is steeper. Yes. Dave Bricker had yeah but parents, but he says that's motivated him to make a life of an adventure. Yes. He feels that they didn't hold him back. They inadvertently pulled the bowstring back and launched him. So, and for those, and I love that, Dave, because for many of us, the yeah but parent is exactly that bowstring. It's like, oh wait, you don't think I can do it? And that rebellious nature comes out and we prove them wrong. But for those of us that are rule followers, I'm a rule follower by nature. It's in my personality. I like to follow rules. So if I had a father that was different, I don't know that I would have had the same success that I've had in my life, because I would have followed the rules. I would have believed him.
Yep. I like this. I had a supportive mother as long as it aligned with what she wanted.
That's a big one.
We all know that one. That's a biggie. I have to tell you, my own daughter who has learned these skills to the point where when I wrote the book, Our Children Are Watching, which was my audience requested that I write a book directly about parenting and the 10 success skills. She read it and she went, yeah, so? And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, it's so obvious. And I said, it's only obvious because you've learned it your whole life. You know, it was kind of like the Buckminster Fuller statement to me was, yeah, doesn't everybody? And so it's been very exciting for me to watch my grandchildren embrace this, to go to their schools and teach this. But it's also been very empathizing for me to see my daughter Margaret, who is kind of like Caro. She's a rule follower. She's a neuroradiologist. She's very precise and scientific and, you know, organized and all that. She's got a son who's a genius in mechanical engineering, but he's also a mountain climber, and that's his passion. And he's not happy unless he's climbing the highest mountains in the world and taking people on expeditions. I'll tell you, it's been the biggest test of her life because she's wanted to say, yeah, but every 15 seconds. And she's learned to like bite her tongue till it bleeds, you know? She can't do that. In fact, the more she says it, the more he does it. So
she's like, Mom, these skills that you taught me from when I was little are
Yeah.
really starting to backfire.
Yes, well, and you all know what you teach your kids usually comes back to haunt you. You know, be assertive, and then they are, and you're like, oh God, I'm the one who encouraged that.
So for those that have a hard time breaking away from the yeah buts, or maybe are having a hard time moving into that third gear, I think this is a great opportunity to segue into success filing, Susan, because at least in my case, when I felt so lost and disoriented and I felt that my light had turned off, I was a very successful person, and I went into a period where I was stuck. I really was very, very, very stuck, and I did not know the how to get out of it. And when I met with you, Susan, I came in first gear, and because of you really moved me into third gear. And I love, and it all started, in my opinion, with success filing. You taught me how to change my language. You taught me how to look at my life from a different way. And I think that propelled me so much faster. So maybe you can talk a little bit about success filing, which I talk with my girls all the time. But I said to them, it's, you know, I talk with this about you all the time, but I'm bringing like the expert, the guru, the success filing guru that invented this term. She's coming to share with you. So, I mean, what a privilege is that for all of us?
Well, I would say the first responsibility you have as a parent is to success file for your kids when they're really little and with their kids as they grow up. And what do I mean by that? Take time each day to say, what did you do today that you think was a success? Now, that sounds like a very advanced question, but I asked that question when I was working with elementary students in a private school in Del Rey, and they wanted to know right away, well, what is success? And so I said, well, success is three parts. Success is completion. It's finishing the things you set out to do. It's deletion. It's knowing when not to do it, when to stop, when to do something different. And it's also creation. It's knowing when you have a good idea that you need to pursue. So the teachers were like, oh, that's way too complicated. These little kids are not going to understand deletion. So I said, well, okay, I'm going to give them some examples, but I believe that they can understand that. So one day they were success filing before the bus. The teacher had set up a time. She had created success files, let the kids create their own with pictures of their dreams and their past successes on the folders. And they were in their cubbies, and they'd get them while they were waiting for the bus. And one little 3.5-year-old said, I had a deletion success today. And the teacher was like, oh, really? What was your deletion success? She said, well, my dad took the training wheels off my bike, and I was able to ride on my own. And the teacher said, you're right, that was a deletion success. Very good. So then all the teachers came back to me and they went, oh, Okay, deletion. They do understand that, especially because remember they've had all these rules and they're looking forward to having the rules taken away. So kids understand deletion very well. When are you going to stop controlling me? It's the question I get from teenagers all the time. How do I get more freedom? And I go, you take more responsibility. And they're like, oh. But that's
Wow.
true.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you there for a minute, Susan, because that is a very powerful statement.
Yes.
How do I get more freedom? You take more responsibility.
Yes.
I think that is incredible. And it applies to us as adults. And I will tell you, Susan, a lot of the people on our call are parents, but we have a lot of people that are not parents, that are single or that have never had children or don't want to have children or are college students. We have even young people that are going to be listening to this call. And I think it's so important for them to listen to that, because from a very young age, the more responsibility we take on, the more empowered we feel to be able to claim that freedom that we so desire.
I was a consultant to a very large real estate firm, and I talked to gears, and we talked about this needing freedom, always wanting more freedom, and the problems with that. And what I found was the people who were the top producers got all the freedom they wanted. Nobody wanted to stop them in any way. So it reinforced this idea that you will have freedom as long as you're performing, as long as you are doing the job, as long as you're being efficient and effective. The feedback is your leaders don't have to be responsible for you. They can guide you, but they don't have to control you. So if you want more freedom, make sure that you're learning as much as you can and you're finding the way. So, you know, they're busy. They'll go off and do something else. They'll be there if you need them, but they won't be standing over you.
And I even think for women, and this is particular to women, women have not always felt like they have freedom, even with their spouses, because the man traditionally has been one that assumes most of the responsibility. And for us, you know, we're moving into an age where that's not as common, but it still exists, where women have to claim responsibility over things such as their finances, areas of their lives that they have always been used to either their parents handling or now their husband handling. And then when they're left, either because they're divorced or because they're widowed or because their parents have passed away, they're left confused and disoriented and not really knowing how to claim that freedom, how to become empowered.
That is a really excellent point, because what you're saying is that we have not always seen ourselves as in charge of ourselves, in charge of our lives. I remember after I was divorced many years ago, I bought a house. It was a big house. And my friends were like, why'd you buy such a big house? I said, because I want a big house. You know, I need a big house. And they were like, but you don't. You know, your kids are in college. You don't need a big house. But I did. I needed a big garden. I needed a big place for people to come. And I realized for the first time in my life, if I want a big house, I can have a big house. I can pay the mortgage. I can do the work. I can do the gardening. I can find a gardener, whatever it takes. But it took me a while, even though I was divorced, I had raised my kids, I was successful in my career. When it came to personal choices, it was very hard for me to grok, I love that phrase, to grok that I was the chooser. I was the one in charge of my life. Or I could opt not to be, but then that was going to mean that I wasn't going to get to my dreams. I wasn't going to get the pleasures that I sought. So I think as women, we're on that edge. Do you know that when COVID, for example, comes, we're the ones who feel like we have to be home to support the kids and make up for what the teachers can't do. And I'm reading in the New York Times about women who put their careers on hold because, you know, they have to be there for their kids. And these are real choices and they're hard ones. But they're putting a highlighter on the fact that we have to choose. We are the child bearers. We are the child protectors. We are the parents. And so are the men, but the onus of it has sat on us for so long that we think it has to, and it doesn't. And I'm seeing more and more marriages where there's, you know, there's partnering on it, you know, not
and partnering, Susan, if I may interrupt for a minute, I was thinking about this and I really want to inject this point. Is another phenomenon that we've seen is that as women have become so empowered, there has been a trend of disempowering men. And then men, when they're confused by having lack of responsibility or feeling like they are being taken away their roles, that has had a negative effect on men. So sometimes it could have the negative impact that the woman now becomes the chooser, the empowered one, the career woman, the provider, the mother, the caretaker, and then the men don't know what role they have, and they don't become partners. So as a mother of boys, it's very important for me to raise my boys with the same skill sets that we're trying to empower our women with, which is leading boys to become, to step into their first, second, and third gears, to step into leadership positions, to not be afraid of a strong woman, but co-partner and become interdependent between male and female relationships. And that's something that we're gonna have to work on for a long, long time, because we do have to strike this beautiful balance between how females are and how males are, and not have the women try to be like the men or the men try to be like the women, but become empowered in our own genders and in our own uniqueness.
I think on the way to that, there are two phrases that I'd like to plant in your mind. We're used to partnerships. And if you look at the word partner, it means parts, two parts that get together to make a whole. I prefer to think of wholenerships, two whole people who come together to share their skills, share their enjoyment, share their dreams, work together, not all the time together, but come together and amplify and success file together and dream together. So I think the old notion of partnerships, we kind of need to push off to the side. There are times when we're in partnerships, like if we're in first gear, but I think what we want in our primary relationships is wholener relationships, where we have the space for both of us to be whole, to both of us express ourselves and be complete. Both of us parent, both of us dream, both of us plan weekends, both of us plan vacations, you know, taking all of the parts in a whole way. The other thing I want to say about that is I see upsets as like a bowl of water. And if something falls in that bowl of water and it starts sloshing back and forth, we tend to overcorrect. We turn it this way, and then it goes out this way, and then it goes this way. What I want us to understand is that when a disruption comes, let's say COVID, or a relationship upset comes, it's going to take a while for the waters to stop sloshing and to settle back down into some kind of a normal level. I think we're in a level right now of a lot of sloshing. I mean, if we look at our politics, if we look at our environment, if we look at the fires, if we look at Black Lives Matter, there's a lot of sloshing going on right now. So it's very important for each of us to find our center, find that place lower in the bowl so that we aren't constantly doing this back and forth. And to be a model of that for our kids, you know. And
how do we do that, Susan? How do we find that center?
I think it's knowing what we want. And it goes back to what you were saying, that timing is everything. You know, we want it to happen now, but it may not happen now. It may be 20 years later, you know. It's having the confidence that when you have taken the time to create an idea in great detail in your brain, in what I think of as your holographic brain, that somehow that message gets out into the universe and it's on its way. Delivery is on its way. Now, we don't know whether it's 2-day mail or it's slow boat to China, but it's on its way. And then we have to be on the lookout for the signals that it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Here's a piece, here's a piece. What we tend to do is if it doesn't come in 2 days, we think it's not ever coming. So I think how we do all these things is this kind of spiritual shift that I was talking about going into third gear. This sense of being guided, being part of a big plan, being a very key player in the universal whole. I really truly believe that each one of us, if we were able to express ourselves, we'd be able to have the battery of our planet working magnificently at far higher levels than we are, because we only have partial power. So again, it's a spiritual shift, not a word I typically use, but even in corporations, people hear me say it. And you know, all of this I've said many different times. I've done over 4,000 training programs in this in corporations around the world. And I've had CEOs say to me about the gears, why did anybody ever tell us this? This makes leadership so simple. It's so obvious. And then I went in and created appraisal programs for corporations so they could evaluate people according to whether they were in first gear or second gear and third gear in a project or in a new job or position. So these skills allow us to have patience and to trust and to be able to work with people and to be able to receive feedback and not be thrown off course.
And I think it makes us more empathetic to others and to ourselves, because if we understand that we are working in first gear, then we're going to be more patient with ourselves and not require the same efficiency from ourselves that we would require if we were in second gear. And the same thing goes for our spouses or for our children. When we are training someone, or for our coworkers, when we are training someone in a task, we need to be more patient and kind and understand that they need to move into that second gear, and then we can work together to move them into that second gear and then empower them so that those light bulbs go off in their heads, and then we can synergize and do greater. You know, their ideas are gonna be greater than even the leader's ideas, because you're empowering them to synergize, and then you have a greater outcome completely. Susan, we have a very short limit of time.
Oh my goodness!
And I want to make sure I know, and I want to keep talking to you forever. Like this is the reason why you've been in my life for so long, is because it's like I'm always overwhelmed by wisdom from this amazing woman. But I do want to share with everybody that Susan is in the middle of writing a new book, and it's The Coronavirus Opportunity. So I want everybody to stay tuned for that, because when that book comes out, she is going to be talking about how to apply these gears and how to apply the 10 skills of success during this unprecedented times. And coronavirus is just one example, but we can use the market crash of 2008. Coronavirus is going to pass, and in 20 years, we're going to have another crisis. And the information that Susan gives is timeless. It will always apply. So I wanted to make sure that you guys look out for that. And the last thing before we go, because we've had so many beautiful conversations, but I really, really want you to take at least 3 minutes in really teaching these women how to do the success filing, and the men in our group to do the success filing so that they can start today if they haven't already, and that can empower them for more success.
Yes. It's really about setting a time aside every day to success file. You can start off by doing it with yourself. So let's say you have a drive every day that's 15 or 20 minutes. Great time to success file. It doesn't have to be an isolated event. What do? You rewind your tape of your day back to when you woke up. You ask yourself, what did I tell myself I was going to do today? And then you look. I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that. I bumped into this person. This piece of information came my way. You look at every single tiny little step in the directions that you want to go in life. And notice I put an S on the end of directions, in the directions you want to go. A success is simply a completion. It's a next step. It's finishing something, but it's more than that. It's taking time to tell yourself you did it. Or if you're a leader, taking the time to tell your child they did it. So it's very important because the world will tell us we failed. The world is always about you're not enough, or you didn't do it quickly enough, or, it's about lack of. It's up to you to feel full. So look at the word successful. Somebody was a genius. If you have your mind full of your successes, it's going to raise your confidence level. Notice the word is self-confidence. It's not because other people made you feel confident. Most of us didn't have other people making us feel confident. Somehow we discovered that we had to acknowledge ourselves. So it could be in the drive. It could be at dinner with your family. I had a single mom with her son, and she success filed with him for years, and he became a much better student because he had confidence. Then one day she emailed me and she said, "You'll never believe this, but my son just said, why don't you ever share your successes with me, Mom? What are you doing that's making you feel successful?" So then they expanded it so that they both shared, and they became aware of each other's dreams and successes, and they acknowledged when they were disappointed too. That's real too. So it's up to you.
Susan, a success could be as simple as getting out of bed if you've been really depressed after going through a tragedy.
Yes.
Right? I mean, a success could be as little. It doesn't have to be that you climb Mount Everest, right?
No, it's a little thing. I mean, this morning, for example, I ordered my vitamins. I made a contact with someone that I was reaching out to. It's the simple things. Life is made up of little stuff. Don't look for the big stuff. It's like the Grand Canyon. You don't take one leap. You take a step and then a step and then a step. It's like a necklace with a string through it, and the string holds it together as a success. So it's the little things. Highly successful told me, don't look at the big stuff, look at the little stuff. The difference between the greats and the not greats is the little stuff, the quantity of little stuff they are able to accomplish. So it's just about making time to acknowledge yourself, to be the person in your life that says, well done.
Wow, that's just amazing. It is 11:01 and I am a stickler about time. I want to respect everyone's time. So for those of you that have joined us and have to get back to work, I value that you're here. We do not take your time for granted. We hope that we've given you so much value. Susan, I don't know how you're doing with time. Do you have an extra few minutes for anybody that may have any questions? Okay, so Susan and I can stay on and continue to answer some questions, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that they're free to go if they have to get back to work. And the bulk of the presentation is over. We're just going to make sure that we answer, answer any last minute questions. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to share comments, this was so amazing. I truly appreciate your time. This was awesome. Thank you for sharing your life coach. I'm so inspired. Thank you so much. This was great. We're getting a lot of positive feedback. If any of you have a question, this is a great time. And Rosemary's asking for Susan's contact information. So Susan, let's make sure that we get your contact information up here.
All you have to do is search for Susan Ford Collins or SusanFordCollins.com or technologyofsuccess.com. I'm all over the place and I'm very available and I'm eager to hear from you.
Thank you.
SusanFordCollins.com. I'm putting it on here, and she is absolutely amazing. I told you guys, I told you, I never let you down. I tell you that I'm going to bring you value, and I bring you value. So, okay. So does anybody have any questions before we end? And I do want to ask a little question, which is, I want you to share with these wonderful people what deletion is in success, because it's so important. And and we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But by the way, everybody, this call is recorded.
The training wheels. But grapevine farmers know this very well, that if they don't prune their vines every once in a while, they don't get any fruit. And it's the same thing in our life. If you don't clean out your closets, they're always over full. But it's also about looking at your dreams, which ones need to be cleaned out. Looking at your contacts, which ones have you not reached out to lately? We've constantly got to prune. A lot of the dreams that we have going into young adulthood are dreams that other people planted in our brains. I realized one day that a lot of what I was trying to do was because my father wanted me to do it, but I didn't want to do it. You know, I quit accounting. I didn't want to be an accountant. So it takes some weeding every once in a while to say, wait a minute, I'm struggling in this area. Why? Well, because what I'm trying to accomplish isn't really my thing. It isn't something that's really mine. I'm going to delete this and put my energy someplace else. So deletion is saying no. It's updating a direction. It's taking off training wheels. It's making changes. And
it's also eliminating toxic relationships, setting boundaries.
Not every relationship is meant to work. You know, it's like you're walking along and you intersect with somebody. The question is, will you continue on the same path, or should you actually be continuing to move on? You had a moment, but it doesn't mean a lifetime. So today we're much more flexible about going in and out of relationships. Of course, we have to be responsible about raising our children and responsible, you know, in lots of ways. But I think that we get stuck sometimes in old beliefs that we maybe need to go back and rethink about, or delete, or update in some important way. So it's letting go. It's creating the opportunity to change. And think of as money as a fixed amount. So you have to take something out of one account or the other to have enough. It's not really true. It isn't fixed amount, but it's a useful thing to see. If I've got all my energy tied up over here, I'm not going to have easily available energy for the other things. So I'm going to clear this out.
So one question that we got from the audience, and it's by Katie, is how do you begin to success file with kids who look at the negative? Maybe they're intuitively, maybe they innately tend to look at the negative.
You just have to guide them, facilitate their questions by saying, well, so what was good about that? Or what did you learn from that? Or, you know, you're the one who stretches them a little bit in the positive direction. You also have to look at, are they negative because you're in some ways presenting negative input to them that they've internalized? Or maybe it's a teacher. I mean, sometimes you find out that kids don't like a particular subject because their teacher is very negative. So you're in a coaching position, and when you success file, it's an opportunity to look at the positives. It's an opportunity to examine the negatives, and to really have a relationship of coaching.
Right, and it's not coddling. It's not you're wonderful because you're wonderful and you do nothing wrong.
Yeah, they can see through that. You know,
go ahead.
I think you have to be willing to give firm, hard, accurate feedback and teach them to accept that, because otherwise they will not be successful in their lives. They will pander. They will hope that people will agree with them. But I'm saying teach them early to not just look at the things they did well, but to also see the success in looking at the things they didn't do well. That's important.
Absolutely. And lastly, when in this coronavirus, we've had such a difficult time managing, you know, all these changes. Now we have the kids at home. We have virtual school. We have new arrangements. Our sometimes spouses, husbands and wives that are not used to being together all day are now together all day. Some of us are feeling lonely. We don't get to see our families. And I think something that's been coming up a lot is, well, how do you do time management? Like, I'll give you an example. A lot of my clients are working much, much more now than they ever did before because they are constantly available on the internet. So their bosses think that it's a free for all. They have meetings at all times. They have all this stuff. So now they're present at home with their families, but they feel even less present because they're working so much on this computer. We're attached to our devices. So a lot of times we're feeling a lot of we're not understanding how do we fit it all in. And you have an amazing way of looking at time management. So I wanted to share that before we go.
Well, you can't manage time because the clock just keeps doing that. I think what you have to do first is look at outcome management. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And I agree, this is a really challenging time. It's a reset time, as I speak about this opportunity in the book. It's a time to reset all of our ways of doing things. So it's going to be very important to think things through newly and to say no. You know, we have to set boundaries. This is the wild, wild west right now. Yes, people could call us from other parts of the world any time of the day and night. How do we set boundaries? It's fair to say no sometimes. And so this is another one of the challenges of, I'm not always available. I'm available between this time and this time. Or I have this that I have to do. For me to do this today, I had to say no to a bunch of other things, and so did you. So this is a really important time to be very clear about what your mission is, what you want to accomplish, and to be clear about who can help you to accomplish that. Because we're finding out that there are a lot of things that we used to do a certain way that we're having to do other ways. I mean, since when did we not drive to work? Since when did we have all of our meetings online? This is an amazing time, but it's a reset point. It's a time to say, who am I now? What do I want now? How do I want the balance of responsibilities to work with me and my partner, whether that's a work partner or a marriage partner? How do I want my children to assume responsibility now? It's all different. So it's all
part of communication.
It's okay if you're confused, but it's not okay if you don't speak up, because it will become crushing. So again, it's going to be important to say yes and to say no, to carve out the space you're willing to be in, and to put up barbed wire on the area that's you're not willing to share. You don't have to share everything. I don't know where we got that idea, but it's not true.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've got a few more comments here. Some people want part 2. We've got, she's amazing. Love to have met another amazing human. Success filing, making the Zoom call. That is a success. For those of you who made it to the Zoom call, you have succeeded today. My mom, Susan, I'm grateful for all you have done for and with Caro. You are amazing. I'm grateful for the Zoom. It's been wonderful. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Susan, for giving us your time. It is so appreciated. You are my gem.
Love you dearly. Look forward to the next time.
I love you.
Thank
you.
I love you.
Wow, Susan, you that was amazing. That was just wonderful.
It was fun. You have such a great group of people.
I do. I have a great group of people.
Who's hanging with you?
These people are superstars. Our community, it's just, they are amazing. They are amazing. And they're
I'm having trouble, my smile is hurting. It's just so much positive energy and like willingness and enthusiasm. It's beautiful. I'm so proud of you. I mean, you're one of the people I'm going to write about, because you used the coronavirus opportunity to change your direction. I mean, this whole core thing, we've been talking about it for a long time, but look what's happened. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it was the right thing at the right time. And how do I know? Because look at all the people that are involved with you.
Yeah.
She is kicking butt, Susan.
Kicking
butt. Like, she is so amazing.
I'm so proud of her.
And you have a lot to do with that. And wait till I tell you, because I am kicking butt too. And she and I have you in common. I can't wait to catch up.
Well, good. I'm available.
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing, Susan. It's funny because I remember sitting with you in our sessions, and you saying to me, honey, you've been in training for this since you were born.
Yes.
You were born to do this work, and you've been in training for this forever. And that always stuck with me. And I'm like, yes, you know, just the process of writing, looking over the edge with you, and developing myself as a presence in the motivational space has been, I owe so much to you, and I'm very grateful. And not just, and not only to you, but also to the community. I'm grateful to my parents who have guided me. For a mom that is just
so supportive. Yeah.
My mom, who is just, she just oozes out love and encouragement and support, and she
backs you up with the kids.
And backs me up with everything. It's, you know, I've had a lot of
major.
Yeah, I've been very blessed to have the people that I have in my life. Betsy, who's been an incredible force in my life, and I have a mastermind that I'm so grateful for, and I've got my friend Dave Bricker, who's been so supportive. So I've just,
oh, it's so exciting to see Dave.
I know he logged off, unfortunately. I wanted him to chat with you a little bit more, but yeah, no, we this is a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful community. So, all right, everybody. I'm going to end the call because I have a feeling that
we can keep going. Oh, wait, Marilyn.
I have a feeling that nobody would log off if I don't hang up the call, because this has been that good.
Caro, do you want to see if anyone has a question before we leave?
I did. I already asked, but if anybody has any last minute questions, it's like speak or forever hold your peace. Legit.
Yes. Or save it till next time. But
I'm about to hang up.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
everybody.
You.
Have a great
Love
night.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.